in other things stupid, the New York Times has a piece today about the Rockettes. Okay, the Rockettes are too white. This is according to Ginia Belafonte. Now, if you think that folks at the New York Times are race-obsessed, you would be correct because everyone at the New York Times has lost their minds. Here's what they write over at the New York Times. Ginia Belafonte, November 30th. She says, on Wednesday, as it happened, I went to see the Christmas Spectacular starring the Radio City Rockettes, which is something you can do at 11 o'clock in the morning in late November in Manhattan. I was by myself. My son, like so many children growing up in New York and fed with its imperious cultural attitudes, would sooner eat a head of escarole than choose to see something dependent on the word spectacular as a noun. There are plenty of children in the audience, though, even if it was a school day, plenty of old people and middle-aged people. Many of them were wearing Santa hats. The crowd was overwhelmingly white. This means that it's a bad show. If a crowd is overwhelmingly white, it must be bad. If the crowd at the latest Beethoven concert is overwhelmingly white, that means Beethoven is bad. I mention this fact because at the end of the second decade of the 21st century, the Rockettes, whose performances are taken in by almost 1 million people every holiday season, are themselves almost all white. So not all white, almost all white. It's not enough that they have some non-white members of the cast. It's not diverse enough. It's just like segregation. The show I saw featured, as far as I could tell, only one African-American dancer in the lineup of close to 40. There were, in the end, more camels on stage than black women. By the way, if you go to a Rockettes show and your first inclination is to start counting the black women, I'd say you have a problem. Among the 80 dancers who made up the Rockettes core, 10% are women of color, a spokesperson for the company told me. You're only seeing half the cast during any given show because there are so many performances to fill, on weekends up to 6 a day. Regardless of that, any variance in skin tone is obscured by lighting and makeup that have the effect of creating a stultifying homogeneity. They need a New York Times columnist to tell them how to run the Rockettes, which has been a continuous show on Broadway for decades. Ancillary cast members in the pageant, non-Rockettes, include a black man playing an elf and a black man playing a bellman. Oh, no. By the way, speaking of playing an elf, my sister, a Jewish girl, played an elf in her elementary school, public school production of A Christmas Thing. I guess that was also anti-Semitic or something. The Rockettes are the creation of someone named Russell Markert, who first brought them to stage in St. Louis in 1925, oversaw their direction at the Radio City Music Hall from the 30s until the 70s. His goal had been to build the most precise and uniform dancing troupe in the world, and to that end, he imposed height requirements for the women in the line. These expectations have continued, unabated. Such a vision accommodates little tolerance for difference. I agree. I think that the Radio City Rockettes should be forced to perform with people who are paraplegic, for example. I think that the Radio City Rockettes, half of them should be in wheelchairs. I think it wouldn't change the nature of the show at all, and it would show a massive understanding of the diversity of modern America, if that were to happen. We should have a bunch of people who are short. We should have a bunch of people who are super tall. They should dance to whatever they want to dance to, actually. There shouldn't actually be any sort of attempt to make them dance in line or in lockstep. That's fascistic. We should actually just let them dance how they want to dance. If someone want to dance jazz, that's cool. If someone want to break dance, that's totally fine as well. If someone want to scoot along on their butt for no reason at all, like my 2.5-year-old son, I think they should do that too. Because that's diversity. That's diversity. And all those people should be racially diverse. Those people should be diverse in terms of sexual orientation. They should be diverse in terms of gender identification. I don't see why the Radio City Rockettes can't be a bunch of mustachioed men. I don't see, all of this, I think, is just un-American. So thank you, New York Times, for really hitting in on the spirit of the holiday. Really honing in on what makes the Radio City Rockettes run the way they're supposed to run.